Hi everyone. I became a permanent resident of Canada in 2020 and it was a long and tough journey for me. It took more than a year for me to get my permanent resident card from the date I received the invitation to apply. Throughout the process, I learned a lot of things that I wished I learned earlier, and today I would like to share some of my tips in the hopes that some of you watching this video and aspiring immigrants would benefit. I applied under the economic immigration category and under the express entry system in 2019. I received the invitation to apply on 20th of January 2019 with a CRS score of 489. After going through the tedious application process and waiting for close to 1 year, I finally received the approval for permanent residence on 21st of January 2020. Although it's been 3 years now, the tips I'm about to share could be useful for anyone planning to apply for permanent residency or if you have received the ITA. IELTS and Educational Credential Assessment are the only two required documents you need to submit your Express Entry profile for receiving the ITA. I applied for the ECA even before planning for the IELTS test because the ECA would be valid for 5 years, so there is no harm in getting it well ahead if you are seriously planning to apply. Also, some universities will take a lot of time in processing your educational documents, and the process may not be the same for all the universities. When it comes to IELTS, you need to analyze and know how much band you need to obtain a good CRS score. This depends on various factors and you need to calculate your CRS score using the CRS calculator in the IRCC website. The link to the CRS calculator is in the description. The minimum score required is 8 in listening and 7 in reading, writing and speaking each. Depending on your other factors such as age, education, marital status, etc., your required bands can change. But in any case, you must know how proficient you are in English and plan your preparation and test booking in advance. I have 2 dedicated videos on how I prepared for IELTS and my tips for the exam. You can find those videos from the description. The one important tip I can provide for IELTS is to focus more on the writing section as most people fail to achieve band 7. The CRS score difference between 6.5 and band 7 writing is 50. So I cannot stress enough on how important is the writing section. The Canadian immigration process is very straightforward and easy. If you follow the instructions, you can do it all by yourself. But under different circumstances, people choose to work with consultants and that is fine. But you need to be careful and follow a few things before working with a consultant. You must verify if the consultant is registered with CICC and is in active status. I have a dedicated video on how to find a good immigration consultant and how to verify the status. You can check that video from the link above. Also, while working with a consultant, there are few things that you need to be aware of, such as the agreement, the cost, terms and conditions, and so on. I have another video on some of the tips for working with an immigration consultant to have a smooth outcome. You can check that video by clicking the link above. The first thing I did as soon as I received the ITA was to set up an appointment for the medical exam. The reason being that in many cities it is impossible to find an appointment within the 60 days time period. Since the medical test results are valid only for up to 1 year, I have seen people postpone this to a later time and then traveling to different cities to get their medical done because they couldn't find any appointments in the nearby test centers. To avoid the hassle of not finding the appointment at your closest medical center, it is best to book the appointment at the earliest possible. IRCC will ask for a remedical if your application took more than a year to process. Not submitting the required documents on time might lead to rejection if not properly justified. Always use a flatbed scanner to scan the documents such as the passport, educational credentials, work experience, etc. to avoid missing any critical information. When scanning my passport, I somehow missed the OCR code at the bottom of the passport and I was asked to submit it again within a few days of submitting my application. Luckily, they did not reject my application, but it may not happen for everyone. Sometimes rejections happen for smallest mistakes. Also, do not do any color correction or edit or alter the documents in any way. This might lead to suspicion and eventually lead to delays or even rejection in worst case. It is very important to check whether you have provided the signature in all the documents where required. Most rejections happen due to missing signatures even though all the documents and forms were accurate. You can avoid this by following the checklist and count how many signatures are required and by whom. For example, in the use of a representative form IMM 5476, both the representative and the applicant must sign. Notice the version of the form when downloading from the IRCC website and make sure you're filling out the latest and updated version. The version will be in the month, year format. Once you fill out the form and you're ready to submit, make sure to take a quick look and check if any latest version of the form has been made available on the IRCC website. Although it takes a lot of time and effort to check all the forms one by one, it will save you from a lot of pain and distress later. Employment reference letter is one of the key documents for Canada PR application under the economic immigration category. Take more time to draft this letter and reach out to your employer even before you submit your profile for ITA. Most employers will ask the candidates to provide their roles and responsibilities. If you fall into that category, you are lucky enough and you can write the roles and responsibilities in such a way that it matches with the primary NOC code you have selected. But do not copy paste the same roles and responsibilities as provided on the IRCC website. Try to relate to your actual roles and paraphrase them accordingly. I have a dedicated video with my tips and suggestions on how to draft the reference letter and how I drafted mine. Please check that video by clicking the link above or in the description. Do not delay or avoid informing IRCC of any important life changes such as marriage, childbirth, change of address, criminal charges, divorce, etc. when your application is in process. It is totally fine if you do not have any documents to submit immediately, but you need to raise a web form first to inform this change, and you can later raise another web form to submit the documents once you receive them. You will receive a confirmation of the receipt of your web form, and you can use this as a proof later for further communications with IRCC. Not informing IRCC of any life changes will impact your application later and you might face rejection for misrepresentation. Make sure to pay all the fees upfront, such as the right to permanent residence fee, the application fees, and fees for spouse and dependents if applicable. Paying the fees upfront will avoid some delays later in the process. Remember to write a letter of explanation if you cannot provide any required documents, any gaps in your employment, any gaps in your education, or any changes to your circumstances. If you are unable to provide any documents or information that is required, and if you write a letter of explanation, that will make it clear to the officer why you cannot provide it. Any missing documentation without proper explanation might lead to rejection. One additional tip that I can provide is to follow some threads on forums such as canadavisa.com. You will find a good amount of information and ideas from different people who have applied for Canada PR. But do not get carried away by the good progress of other applicants or the delay for some applicants. Every applicant is unique and you can never compare your application status with others. Being active on forums helps you understand the bigger picture of the Canadian immigration process. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching and all the best.